in the late years of his life again coincided with the turbulence of war, civil war in England that had started in 1642. So in the course of his life, actually, he experienced a wide range of ups and downs. But he was very much under the influence of 17th century poetic challenges, especially those who were having composed by John Donne. He inherited from John Donne the tradition of the anti-Platonic deflation of high flown love sentiments, and he used it with a sense of innocence in his love poetry. So, but his position was absolutely ambivalent. On the one hand, he was a metaphysical poet, and on the other, his poetry lacks those subject matters that attracted the attention of metaphysical poets, like love. However, his love poetry is absolutely different from the concepts that other metaphysical poets had understood. So this is quite, superlative, we can say, poetry that he generated, because his ideas were that much delicate that could lend themselves to, his departure from the poetics of metaphysical poetry. So this is why we cannot categorize him as an absolute metaphysical poet, nor as a totally different voice that may, eulogize, his talent. So, Sir John Suckling was a courtier in the beginning, so it is absolutely important to know his political role in England and how his fame contributed to the flourish of his poetical significance in the early 17th century. So he was a person from a very rich family, and he had spent a big deal of his life out of England, especially in France and in Low Countries. And his poetry is a combination of lyric poems and some funny statements that could embellish his language. So what else do you know about him, and what kind of poetry did he compose? So probably you know that his poetry is very much interested in narrative poems, and well, the tradition of narrative poems or narrative poetry was quite long in England. Maybe Shakespeare was the greatest mind that produced two very long narrative poems, Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece. However, the narratives that Sir John Suckling intended to generate would be totally different from those of Shakespeare's. So, he has a very beautiful poem that is a ballad of a wedding, and some other, well, shorter poems, just like the Goblins, the Discontented Colonel, or Colonel actually, and Accounts of Religion by Reason, and so many other things. So, but his poems, actually, some of his poems demonstrate his interest in politics too. So from that point of view, we can categorize him as a cavalier poet too. So that is not a clear-cut, you can say, labeling that may save him from the context of metaphysical poetry. But he wrote both poems. I mean, metaphysical poems based on the, on the imagination of the originality of imagination of John Donne, and some political poems that could follow, I mean, the poetics of Ben Jonson as the cavalier poet. Yeah, let's go for the poem. I mean, loving and beloved. So what is the main idea of this poem? That's, well, of course, the poem is, it can be a Petrarchan complaint that affects the reader by the subtlety of the subject matter, and of course a psychological referentiality that may boost the off-text possibility of the story. So let's go for the poem itself, loving and beloved. So the poem actually is the voice of a desperate lover who is not able to hide his disillusion with love. Okay, who wants to talk about it? Don't write anything actually in the chat box, because I do not read your messages. Your messages may distract me and will, of course, make your other classmates busy with those writings. So please, if you want to say something, do not write it. Try to get the microphone and talk. That's the best policy. Yes, Mr. Biaswant, I will unlock you. Also, Mona Muhammad and Fatima Nikuna, I have unlocked you too. So yes, go on, Mr. Biaswant.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Hello.
May I start?
You can start, yes.
Sure. Well, in general, we can say that this poem is could be considered as a poem about a paradox about that we not often love and be loved by somebody. I mean, by the same person, which the poet as discusses throughout this poem that he is not sure whether this love or being loved by someone is honest or not. And he tries to compare this two situations together, and finally he comes to this understanding that it comes to this paradox that whether we have to pretend something or being honest in the other situation. And by the end, he comes to this conclusion that this question, as he believes, must not be answered by the end of the life. I believe that we can consider this poem more, let's say, considering social and political situations of life. As we can see in the first verses of the poem, we can see that the comparison between a lover and kings. And so, in my opinion, we can consider this a political poem. Not just talking about, I mean, it is the secondary idea to be discussing love or being loved by a person, as we can find out that he's discussing how a king is, whether a king is honest in his situation, in his position or not. Or as it says, for example, that I think it is the 6th or 7th verse, that he says that their chief art in rain dissembling is. So we can say that he is going to measure how the people in charge of a society are true about the position they have and what they say or not. And this comparison is going to be judged, whether we can understand finally that they are, let's say, in the position mentioned or not.
Mm-hmm. So actually, a very fundamental concept that is latent in the poem can demonstrate how his subjective consciousness of the meaning of love has been distorted in the 17th century. So that is, of course, as I told you, metaphysical poetry is intended to reveal its disagreement with Petrarchan qualities of love. However, here, this poem is, I think, a combination of both Petrarchan and anti-Petrarchan poetics, because on the one hand, the poet is interested in being loved by a beloved. So, but the mistress is contextualized, I mean, according to his social and political consciousness, that the subject matter of love, that is the beloved person, should not be expected to be honest at all. So it is the same, I think, political awareness that he had of monarchy. So that in the same way that the monarch cannot be so honest to people, this quality, or we can call it a disqualified, pattern in love and lovemaking, can be adaptable too. So that is a very, I think, delicate disagreement that announces the cry out of the poem of the poet against those tyrannical rules. So these rules can be channeled by the political, situations of the period, and he is very successful, I mean the poet, in grafting these political consciousnesses on the microcosmic condition of love. So and that is quite, as I told you, ambivalent. Both metaphysical and non-metaphysical contents can be derivative from this poem. Yeah, and let's go and just see if Mona Muhammad Hassan, do you want to say something?
Yeah, hello sir, good afternoon.
Hello.
Yeah, I would like to talk about the poem. As my classmate Rosa said, that this poem talk about the paradox that we are rarely loved and loved by the same person. So I think men and women have been at odds since the beginning of time. there was lots of speculation about who he could love or who more. The problem with the controversy is the argument is about the amount of love, and also about not the type of love. With this, it can be assumed that the problem is no longer about the amount of love one person can have when compared to another, but rather the different love styles of both sexes. It contrasts the difference in love is basically a battle between the sexes for who has the best kind of love. So in some lines of this poem, the poet talk about also the similarity between the men and the kings. He said that the men and the kings and lovers are alike in respect. Their main function is to pretend we love one person, but our love is not reciprocated, and therefore they are loved by someone we don't love. So which one will win, good nature or passion? Sometimes we pretend to love, and on other occasion we hide true love, and it's hard to tell which is more difficult, his condition and wants to be an honest man again. That's what I want to say.
Well, yes, actually, your understanding of poem, however, I think probably you have consulted an external source, could definitely be congruent with the impossibility of love as a subject matter that could be quite provocative in the early years of the 17th century, that how love had changed its nature, and how people could expect love to come absolutely false. So that is the enforcement of love that may demonstrate its power when your consciousness about the impossibility of love may stand in the way of your heart to be extremely warm with the radiance of love. So this is, I think, again, a kind of complaint that the poet is offering in light of his anti-Petrarchan conception of the meaning of love, that how love is turning out to be an impossible condition, never rewarding, never achievable, and at the same time a kind of cruelty that definitely quenches the zeal of the lover for the fiery passion. And that is a, I think, devastating statement that may stand in the way of the poet's realization of love as a heartwarming condition. So yes, let's see. Next person, Ms. Nikunan, do you want to talk?
I'm sorry, may I ask a question before?
Yes.
Well, the very beginning of the class, you have described things about cavalier poetry and cavalier poets.
Mm-hmm.
I have this question: whether these poets are involved in politicians. I mean, were they politics or politicians? And if so, can we consider that based upon the situation they had, they could not reveal their disagreement to the, let's say, the governing group at the time. So they have used such topics, I mean, loving and beloved and so on, in order to discuss their ideas and show whether they agree or disagree to the ruling system of the time. Although I have seen that he, for example, Sir John Suckling, has got some poems in which he directly tried to state his own idea about the situation he was in, and the situation the society has regarding to the politicians of the time?
Well, actually, two categories of Cavalier poets lived in England in the 17th century. Some of them were directly connected and related to monarchy, just like Sir John Suckling, as I told you, and maybe Andrew Marvell, and and some others. These people did not need to hide their attitudes towards politics. However, in the reigning time of King James, a kind of openness in political avenue of England had happened, so these people could feel themselves quite safe. And the second group was a group of poets who were not affiliated directly with the political body of the country, so they would be more conscious about the dangers of representing their ideas so frankly. So that is, the first category in which Suckling could be incorporated. So he did not take any sense of expediency in order to reveal his political ideas. So yes, we can say that in the 17th century, both groups of people, of poets, in the context of Cavalier poetry, could definitely regard poetry as a vehicle for complaining or extolling even the grand politics of the country.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so let's see if Ms. Nekunam, I think you were going to say something, right?
Hello, sir. Yes. I actually didn't have anything new to say because it was well explained by you and my other classmates. I just have a question about the last line. It's saying love's triumph must be honor's funeral. Can we say that, can we relate to this part to the part that says kings and lovers are just like each other and both of them are concealing something and they cannot be truly honest? So once one of them is lying and once one of them is actually trying to hide something, they're going to lose their dignity and they cannot be trustworthy anymore. So is this part related to the first verse, or the beginning lines? And can we say that here, again, he's kind of talking about politician as well, like once they're starting to lie or conceal something, they're going to lose their dignity little by little. And even if people don't understand it, it's going to be revealed soon. Is it like that, or am I mistaken?
Well, actually, it could be a valid interpretation of the engagement of the poet with the meaning or the concept of love, however. So, but the thing that should not be misleading when you want to read a complicated poem like this one by Suckling is that there was a departure from, as I told you before, there was a departure or an intention for departing from the Petrarchan meanings of love. That was all about the complaint of a poet or of a lover about the dishonesty or cruelty or merciless attitudes of the lover of the beloved towards the beloved, the lover. So, but the thing is that something that should be considered as an underlying element of these metaphysical poets or metaphysical poetry is that in metaphysical poetry there is a very zealous inclination towards the reintroducing of carnal and mundane love that could be, as John Donne says, the prerequisite ladder towards the platonic love. However, just don't look at these poems, those written by metaphysical poets, as divine, discourses that may operate as the savior of the lover or the beloved. No, you should just think about them quiet, earthily. So they are as a mundane requirement that should, develop or smooth the way for the crystallization of the divine and sublime love. Okay, Fikri, what is your question?
Thank you so much, sir. Got it.
You're welcome. Do you want to speak, Fikri? I should unlock you. We are waiting for you. So I think you cannot connect to the audio. Okay, so let's go for reading the poem.
Sorry, Doctor.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, Doctor. Before my question, I think the poet asked God of love to take away his torches because he's weary or tired or fatigued of his state, and he would like to be more honorable man. And also, Suckling pursues further the political skepticism by or implied by his natural. And however, loving and likable has connotations bolder than the physical and emotional state caused by the god of desire. My opinion is there are so many lexical repetitions in the poem. They are used to signify the images of the poem, or are they used for another things? Thank you, sir.
Well, I didn't get your point. Your voice is breaking up. Could you please repeat your question?
You hear me well?
I can hear you, but what was your question exactly? Could you repeat it?
The question that there are many lexical repetitions in the poem.
Okay. Lexical repetitions or petitions?
Yes, repetitions.
Repetitions, okay.
Repeated. Yeah. Are these to signify the images of the poem or the other things?
So actually these repetitions could be, the technical awareness that the poet sustains to intensify the meaning of something special. So however, in many of the poems composed by metaphysical poets and some of the Cavalier poets, this repetition could signify the ideological, we can say magnitude as something that they are talking about. So, and here in the poem, however, these lexical reiterations can demonstrate the desperation of the poet with the conditions that he is stuck in. And however, based on your interpretation, the meaning of these repetitive presentations could contribute to your decoding of the meaning of the poem. Some of them could be a discourse of court, I mean the monarchy, that he is probably afraid of, and he does not want to declare maybe his ideas in a blatant way. So, but what you can do is to definitely should be acquainted with the political conditions in which, I mean, the poet had lived. It was a totally turbulent place, I mean, England, and finally, some years after the composing of the composition of this poem, it was in 1649, that Charles I was executed. So you know that how the culture of expression had been distorted and usurped by Oliver Cromwell in the same place in England at the same time. So it is quite likely that the practice of repeating some words could be the the brand of the poet to demonstrate his concerns about the revelation of expression in a blatant way. So, but of course, part of it may be under the influence of the poet's technical prosody that may boost his versifying talents. Anyway, we should go through the poem itself, and we'll just, where relevant, we will talk about those repetitions. Okay, so just wait, I should save something here with this print. No print here, in this print. Just here, how did the romantic mind gives me print. Yeah, okay, so let's go for the poem. Loving and beloved. Sometimes this word, beloved, is pronounced as beloved, and its normal pronunciation is beloved. So you do not need to say beloved, because the pronunciation as beloved is a poetic license that the rhyming conditions may impose. Okay, there never yet was honest man that ever drove the trade of love. It is impossible, nor can integrity of ends remove. So, and then he continues, for kings and lovers are alike in this, that their chief art in reign dissembling is. So what is the meaning of the main idea behind these 6 lines? This stanza is a good beginning. The start of the pessimism of the poet about love, beloved, and politics. So how do you analyze this part of the poem? Let me know.
Excuse me, can we say they do pretend, both lovers and the kings do pretend that what they do is in prior to them. As he says, I mean, the poet says that their chief art in reign dissembling.
So what
I
is
mean-
reign here? We know that the king reigns, of course. That is the practice of ruling that every king or queen is committed to. We know that. But what about reign of a beloved or lover, actually? So what is the meaning of this? This is maybe a structuralist conception of the meaning of lover, that how a king and a lover are similar to each other. We know that a king reigns a country, well, maybe King James, who reigned England. But what about a lover? How does a lover reigns? Well, how does a lover, practice the act of reigning?
Sir, could it be about his feelings, like the things he's feeling, like that is his reign, and I don't know how he can act it, how he can show it. I think that's this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but how are they similar to each other? I mean, what is the case of likeness between a king and a lover?
Sir, could it be about the situation or the set of actions they both do in order to, let's say, do what they want, to do what they have to do? I mean, for example, a king controls a society or something, and a lover may do a set of actions to pretend and to show that he is doing everything he has to do to show his love to others.
So what is the implication of this? Does it mean that a king and a lover are both interested in showing their attitudes in hypocrisy? They say something, but they do something else. It is an ironic commitment that distinguishes the king and lover from others. So a king requires to be dishonest in order to spare his country and himself from danger. Well, that may be the the quest of power that enables the king to do so. But what about the lover?
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, we regard it as conflict with nature and I mean the natural instincts made virtuous by laws imposed by the ladies of the court, and the bodily lust earlier lust that in the love.
Well, but was it a question? I didn't get your point. So I think there is something problematic with your microphone or with your audio system. I don't know if it is like that for me or for others, that you seem to be breaking up all the time.
Sir, about your question, can we say they're alike, because the lover is trying to exaggerate, like the king is trying to protect, he's concealing something to protect his country or his land, and the lover is trying to exaggerate to get to what he wants, or maybe showing the things that are not exactly there, like over showing something. In that case, they're like each other. One of them is trying to hide something to protect, the other one is trying to overshow something to get.
Oh, yes. And the thing, I mean, the pivotal attitude that may link these two together, I mean, the king and the lover, I think is the concept of mendacity, or what we call disintegrity. So in that sense, yeah, both of them are similar to each other, that they do not try to convince the extended world based on honesty, but based on pretense. So, however, it may be, spiced by, the sense of exaggeration too. So anyway, it is quite discursive that how the discourse of a king is similar to the discourse of a lover, because they both try to avoid something happening. So, and then he continues that here we are loved and there we love. Good nature now and passion strive, which of the two should be above, and laws unto the other give. So here actually the word strive should be pronounced as strive in order to be rhymed with the last word give. Yes, and what is your understanding of this stanza? Anybody else just wanting to talk? Okay, let's see if somebody is on the list. I see a name here, Ismail Abdu Hussein. Abdu Hussein, right? Are you here? Would you like sharing your analysis with your friends?
May I, sir?
Just wait for some other people to see if they can, cooperate.
Sure.
Okay, but it is not a good excuse, you should regulate all your hardware in order to be active in the class, because you definitely know that my classes are all like roundtables, so we expect you to speak to others. Okay, who else? Zahra Hudan, are you here? I will unlock you, then let us know what you think about this part.
Good afternoon, sir. Do you have my voice?
Hello, I do have your voice.
Okay. About this poem, actually, I studied about Sir John Suckling. I read something about his biography. I saw those political traits that you said and about his background. And actually, there was a sad thing I wanted to ask about his end of life. Actually, he committed suicide, I suppose. And now in his poem, I see some other points. Actually, it was my other question I wanted to ask you at the end of the session, that why most of the poets commit suicide, and what is their, I don't know, with their life or with, and he was very young actually. Sir John Suckling had lived maybe for 40 or under 40 years. But apart from this, about this stanza, that's